In this video, we're going to be exploring how do you cope with the emotional toll of suffering from chronic fatigue and other fatigue-related conditions like ME, fibromyalgia, long COVID, and so on. So the first thing is to recognize there is an emotional toll. It doesn't mean that your symptoms are caused by your mind and your emotions. They may play a role. But just living with a severe, debilitating illness, of course that has an impact on how you feel. And I think sometimes because culture, society has a lot of misconceptions around fatigue-related conditions, it's almost we start to internalize those for ourselves, that we start to ignore and reject the needs of our own body because that's what everyone is encouraging us to do. So just to acknowledge, to recognize there is a significant emotional toll of not being able to do the things that you love to do, of things that in your life before that may not have felt like significant challenges become big challenges because you've got less energy and resources to meet them. That the people that love you and care for you in your life may not really understand what it is that you're experiencing. All of this has a big impact. Also trying to figure out what you should do, shouldn't do for recovery. Will you ever get better? All of the uncertainty. It's a lot. So firstly, just validating and recognizing that, I think is really important. The second thing is we need support from other people. You can't do it all by yourself. Many of us may have a helper pattern where we've learned to make everyone else's needs more important than our own. And then we find ourselves in a situation where we have a severe, debilitating chronic illness, and we're not good at asking for what we need. This is compounded, I think, with fatigue-related conditions where there is, as I mentioned, a lot of cultural misunderstanding. I've had a number of patients over the years that post-recovery from ME chronic fatigue, they've then had some other significant physical illness, things like cancer or physical injuries, and they've reported back to me the huge difference of how other people responded in those situations. It's like they knew what those things were and they knew what one might need when going through that experience. And so often we have to work a little bit harder to really communicate, to really explain what it is that we need. And so sometimes it's the last thing we feel like doing when we have limited energy. But I want to encourage you to do that, to advocate for your needs, to take some time to communicate to the people that you love and the people that love you what they can do to support you. Indeed, one of the hardest things is when we love someone and they need help and support, but we don't know how to help and support them. So the more explicit you can be of what you need, actually the more that helps people be there for you. My third top tip for coping with the emotional toll of living with fatigue-related conditions is to make sure you've got a plan. Like you've not just decoded your fatigue, but you've got a plan of how you're going to move forwards. That plan may change and may evolve. Often we get clarity by taking forward steps and then we figure out what the next steps are going to be. But feeling emotionally overloaded, feeling stuck in our experience feels easier if we have a map and a plan that we have some faith in. We don't have to know that it's all going to work perfectly, but we need to have enough hope that we can take positive steps forward. And so if you haven't yet been able to decode your fatigue and map a path to move forwards, I'd really encourage you to do that. And I should also just say that that is really the focus of my book on fatigue-related conditions, Decode Your Fatigue. It will give you a roadmap and a plan to decode what's going on, but it'll also give you a roadmap of how you can move forwards. And then my fourth top tip. This is one that I think surprises people sometimes. It's okay sometimes to give up. Giving up for an hour, giving up for a day, giving up for a few days doesn't mean we're giving in forever. But sometimes we are trying so hard to get well. And there's so much pressure, there's expectation from other people that we feel so much stress that each time we have a symptom get worse, or each time we feel worse than we hoped or expected to, all of these stress and anxiety and inner critic patterns start to get activated. And sometimes we're so emotionally depleted by all of that, we just need to surrender. So don't be afraid to give in for an hour, a day, a few days, because sometimes there's a really deep rest and peace that comes from that. But we don't have to live in that place. We can recharge our batteries a little bit and then take our next steps forward. My experience of recovering from chronic fatigue, and I've heard this from many people over the years, it's one of the hardest things you do in your life. And when you look back on this journey, you're probably going to look back with a lot of empathy and compassion for the you that's living now. So give that empathy and compassion to yourself right now. Let me know in the comments below this video what helps you cope with the emotional loads and challenges of recovering from fatigue-related conditions. I think that'll be a real service to other people on the journey to hear what's helping you in the comments. And I look forward to talking with you in the next video next week.